Welcome back. A great photo came across my Facebook wall the other day, and it said something like, "A bird is better than American politics because at least with a bird, the right wing and the left wing work together to lift up the center." So today we're going to be talking about things that you might consider to be the center. Very specifically, we're going to look at Jim Wallis's book, God's Politics, Why the Right Gets It Wrong and the Left Doesn't Get It. I highly recommend this book, as well as Jesus for President that we talked about last week. But Wallis also has out a companion piece that goes along with this. It's called Living God's Politics, and this is sort of like a workbook. I recommend that you pick up both of these, and you're also going to find a lot of video clips of Wallis online. His appearances on The Daily Show, for instance, as well as several other things you can find. Also, I have posted a lot of these on my Facebook page today, so you can find links to those there. Wallis starts off in this book by talking about two ways that Americans can be of faith. One is to say with confidence that God is on our side, that God blesses and endorses all of our national policies and our practices. The other way, though, is like Abraham Lincoln did, to say, to ask, to pray, and to worry earnestly whether we are on God's side. So while the first option, God is on our side, leads inevitably to triumphalism, self-righteousness, bad theology, and sometimes dangerous foreign policy, the latter option, asking if we are on God's side, can lead to much healthier things like penitence, humility, reflection, even accountability. Things that we could use more of when it comes to American politics. By now you've hopefully figured out that God is neither a Republican nor a Democrat. That Christians also, for various moral, genuine reasons, may very well be on one side or the other, or on neither. This is as it should be. The best contribution of religion to politics is precisely not to be ideologically predictable nor loyally partisan. Faith must be free to challenge both right and left from a consistent moral ground. There's a great paragraph in the introduction to God's Politics where Wallis spells out exactly what he considers this concept of God's politics to be. He says, God's politics reminds us of the people our politics always neglect: the poor, the vulnerable, the left behind. God's politics challenges narrow national, ethnic, economic, or cultural self-interest, reminding us of a much wider world and the creative human diversity of all those made in the image of the Creator. God's politics reminds us of the creation itself, a rich environment in which we are to be good stewards, not mere users, consumers, or exploiters. And God's politics pleads with us to resolve the inevitable conflicts among us as much as it is possible without the terrible cost and consequences of war. God's politics always reminds us of the ancient prophetic prescription to choose life so that you and your children may live, and challenges all the selective moralities that would choose one set of lives and issues over another. This notion of selective morality also applies to what we consider the moral issues of an election to be. Some Christians would claim that the religious responsibility is always to vote for the candidate that is against just two things: abortion and gay marriage. That these two issues alone are somehow what defines a candidate's moral stance. But in a major poll conducted just after the 2004 election, people were asked to choose the most urgent moral problem in American culture. 33%, the top vote, was greed and materialism. Right behind that at 31%, poverty and economic justice. These two apparently big issues of abortion and same-sex marriage received only 16 and 12% respectively. This same poll also asked what the greatest threat to marriage is. The top two answers: infidelity and rising financial burdens. We need to understand that voting our morals, voting our values, and yes, even voting our faith as Christians does not mean that we're to see the election solely as a two-issue sort of thing. People realized this even in 2004 when that poll was taken. And this was an election in which Christian faith was a big part of the conversation. So hopefully we, as voters in this 2012 election, see things broadly as well. But with these two specific hot-button issues and other moral issues in our past and present, Christians come even to a variety of conclusions. We do not all agree on what is right, what is wrong, or even what the Bible has to say about it. Unfortunately, this is a hard reality that many want to ignore or simply brush off as, well, obviously some of you must just be misguided or incorrect. But if we're going to try and engage each other in sensible, fair political discussions, this is an important conclusion to realize, that we don't all agree, even on issues that some would say are very black and white. Here's another one. No religion can claim a monopoly on morality. If we're to exist fully and authentically as Christians in this nation, we need to remember that we're a cultural and a religious melting pot. That maybe everyone, even those of other religions or no religion at all, have a moral compass in place, likely, that guides their daily living as well as their voting decisions. And that all of us together must help decide what the common good will be for America and for the world by figuring out how our ethics and theirs all can find compromise. When we vote our morals, we ask a multitude of questions. We recognize how frequently the Bible addresses our obligation to help the poor. And we ask how this should apply to our social policies both here and abroad. We approach economic issues like the budget, the deficit, taxes, and more economic choices as ethical decisions. How do our choices about money reflect our values as a people? I'd like to wrap things up by quoting Wallace, who closes out the introduction of his book with a manifesto of sorts about how we approach an American election as believers. He outlines these criteria. We believe all candidates should be examined by measuring their policies against the complete range of Christian ethics and values. We will measure the candidates by whether they enhance human life, human dignity, and human rights, whether they strengthen family life and protect children, whether they promote racial reconciliation and support gender equality, whether they serve peace and social justice, and whether they advance the common good rather than only individual, national, and special interests. We believe that poverty, caring for the poor and vulnerable, is a religious issue. Do the candidates' budget and tax policies reward the rich or show compassion for poor families? Do their foreign policies include fair trade and debt cancellation for the poorest countries? We believe that the environment, caring for God's earth, is a religious issue. Do the candidates' policies protect creation or serve corporate interests that damage it? We believe that war and our call to be peacemakers is a religious issue. Do the candidates' policies pursue wars of choice or respect international law and cooperation in response to real global threats? We believe that truth-telling is a religious issue. Do the candidates tell the truth in their campaigns, their debates, their policies? We believe that human rights, respecting the image of God in every person, is a religious issue. How do the candidates propose to change the attitudes and policies that led to abuse and torture of prisoners, for instance? We believe that our response to terrorism is a religious issue. Do the candidates adopt the dangerous language of righteous empire in the war on terrorism and confuse the roles of God, church, and nation? Do the candidates see evil only in our enemies, but never in our own policies? We believe that a consistent ethic of human life is a religious issue. Do the candidates' positions on abortion, capital punishment, euthanasia, weapons of mass destruction, HIV, AIDS, and other pandemics, and genocide around the world, do their positions on all of these things obey the biblical injunction to choose life? This is a call to Christians and other people of faith to a more thoughtful involvement in this and every election. So that was Wallace's big closeout to his introduction. I thank you for your time as we looked at just a taste of what he has to say in this book. Please, again, feel free to respond below with your comments, and be sure to join me again for the final installment next week, where we look specifically at our responsibilities to the children or youth that may be under our influence in our homes, classrooms, neighborhoods. How do we teach the young people these important lessons about faith and politics without just getting them to mimic our particular opinions about the candidates? See you then.